Hey everybody, Mike Toy with Bonsai Boise. This is a New Mexican olive, aka New Mexican privet. I got two of them last fall, back in September of 2023. They're pretty cool. These are just raw material, which I love. It's where you get to really form its shape and its destiny right from the start. But as you can see, it's got these kind of a light green, almost a yellow. They ended up turning yellow in the fall leaves. The bark is kind of a light gray, very smooth. Tons of potential on both of them. This video is really only going to focus on one of them, the one that I found to be most interesting. It might have been kind of lengthy if I did both. But when I got them last fall, I didn't do anything at all with them, which was really hard because as you can see, they're yelling out to be trimmed or shaped or something, but I held off. They have good root base, kind of flares out a little bit, good taper. So I waited patiently. And here it is in March of 2024. Finally decided to do some shaping. So the first thing I do is I just cut it down to a reasonable size. But there were some big decisions to make down there. There was, on both of them really, they had giant branches coming out of the same spot, 3 or 4 branches. There we go. Let's take a closer look. So there it is. Lots of good potential there. You see one branch right off the bat that's going to have to go. You probably caught it off to the right side there. It's kind of crisscrossing in there, right there. But lots of directions to go here. There's that root base again, just really cool root base. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to repot it. I moved this spring and just didn't get a chance to repot all the ones that I wanted to repot, unfortunately. So a little bit about these. They are technically a privet. They're called a New Mexican olive, I assume, because they do bear fruit when mature, and the fruit looks like little olives. There's these little dark purple olives. Mine did not, but just the research that I did showed me that they do eventually. So they're called the New Mexican olive, even though they're technically a privet. If left unchecked, they can grow to be 15 to 20 feet tall. I think their native habitat is somewhere down around New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, the Southwest for the most part. They are drought tolerant, so I read, but I had an experience with one of these where the sprinkler wasn't really hitting it well and it dried up kind of quick and it got real sad. I had to put it in the shade for a few days. So that surprised me for being a desert drought tolerant, shrub. It really was kind of sensitive to that. So take it with a grain of salt. Time to make some big cuts here. I ended up getting a little clumsy and scraping the bark in one spot, you'll see. Kind of a tight fit in there. couple other fun facts about these is that they are somewhat pest tolerant from what I understand. And they're pretty low maintenance. So I read. This is my first year with them, so again, going mostly off just stuff I've read in my little experience so far. And I couldn't find any videos on these being used as bonsai. There might be some out there, but I sure couldn't find them. I had a hard enough time just finding information on them in general. I did find some websites, but it's not readily available, and they're not super well known. So if you've had one of these, or you have knowledge about them, please do share. Always kind of curious too, as you're watching me, trim this up and make some decisions. What direction would you have gone? And no wrong answer there. It's not like, oh no, you're wrong, or I'm wrong. It's just everybody. It's an art. Everybody has their own style and their own vision and their own process. Sometimes I don't have a vision at all, and it's just my process is I start nibbling away at it, and then a vision kind of opens up along the way. Kind of what I'm doing here, really. But I always like to hear everybody's opinions on which way they might have gone with it. A lot of the ideas are really good too. Sometimes I regret going the way I went. I hear a good idea and I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Now I wish I would have. But that's okay. My loose strategy so far with this at this stage is trying to set it up in such a way that I'm not locked in if I want to change direction later, or if I want to go a different style. I will still have the flexibility to do so. But at this point, I still don't know what to expect. I don't know how they respond to pruning. I just have no idea. I've seen some trees where you do a big hard prune like this and they don't respond well. And they just sort of, I don't want to say sit dormant, but I've had trees where after a big hard prune, they just sort of stay and maintain for almost the whole growing season. And then other trees, they just keep going without skipping a beat. Like if you took a maple tree, like a silver maple or something like that, gave it a big hard prune, it wouldn't even blink. You could chop it in half and it'll just keep on growing. So I don't know what to expect with this. But here's kind of where it landed. I've got a few branches coming out of each side. I've got some good taper from top to bottom, really. I don't love that top third of it where it's just sort of long and straight. But I kept it there because my hope is that branches are going to back bud all up and down and around. And so I'll be able to make decisions later. Here it is about a month later after I moved. And it's barely got one little bud popping out. There, one there. I think there's another one on the other side. Here it is in May. So this is now 2 months later. And you can see it's not really popped out that much, just a little. So I'm a little worried. Not worried, but I don't know. I'm not encouraged, I guess. The rest of my trees were flush at this point. I'm kind of wondering if maybe they don't like hard pruning. I don't know. Here it is a couple weeks later, and now I'm a lot less worried. It's starting to kind of find its way. You can see back budding all over the place. Tons of weeds in this pot. Unfortunately, I'm always pulling weeds out of it. I definitely am going to repot it next spring. So yeah, you can see. If you can see past the weeds, you can see the back budding happening all over. here it is a week or two later, and now it's really starting to flush out. So it kind of just held back for a couple of months and then just all of a sudden just took off running. I did notice here and there on this one and the other one, occasionally a branch would just die back for like no reason. But here it is now. So as you can see, in that short amount of time, in the first 2 months, it barely put on any growth at all. And then the last month, it just exploded. I mean, it exploded so much, so quick. I was thinking originally I was just going to let it grow all year. But now, I mean, it's taken over the whole bench. It's blocking out light from its own inner branches and inner leaves. So, okay, we'll just trim it up. And we'll get it in a good position for next year. And we'll start to, formulate a little harder plan for it. A little. I won't paint myself into a corner. But we can at least now know kind of how it goes and how its growing patterns are. I would describe it as holding back, holding back, holding back, exploding all at once. As you can see, the leaves at this time of year in late June are very vivid green, very, very green, compared to September in that first clip where they were pretty yellow, kind of a light green / yellow. One other part that I felt was kind of noteworthy is that these long shoots they're all green from start to finish. They don't. I don't know how long it takes for them to sort of harden off, and start to get a little more woody looking. But as you can see, right where they pop out, all the way to the end, it's just like a long new growth green shoot. So I don't know what to make of that. That's different from, what I'm used to. Maples don't do that. Ficus don't even really do that. So maybe that's a trait that is specific to this species. I don't know. At this point, I'm getting less shy. I was sort of nibbling my way in at first, but now that I've got it pretty well trimmed back, I'm being a little less picky and a little less shy about it because I can see it's back budding all over the place. So that's the other good news, is that they do back bud, and they back bud all over. There are those trees that sort of back bud sometimes when they feel like it, but never in the spots you want them to, like not in old growth. Old hardwood growth. This one doesn't seem to care. It just back buds everywhere. Kind of like an elm in that way. In that one thing, I would compare it with an elm. Elms sort of back bud all over the place, especially in spots you don't want them to. I haven't decided on what pot to repot it into in the spring yet. Still trying to, figure out its personality and see what type of pot would suit it best. I'm thinking, just because of how bright and colorful the leaves are compared to the light gray trunk, maybe almost like a mica pot, or maybe just a brown unglazed pot. I think it would contrast well. But I got some time to look around. Possibly even like a black glazed pot might pop with that color of leaf. Open to ideas there too. And I just do a little bit of cleanup here. I'm just sort of cleaning up the little nubs that were left over from trimming it. One last thing I'll throw in there, I did try and take cuttings, not from this time trimming it, but the original time back in March, and none of the cuttings took. Could be due to a lot of different things. It doesn't mean they won't root from cuttings, it just means my first try was not successful. I put them straight in the soil. Oftentimes in early spring, that works. It's usually better to put them in a bottle of water or a bucket of water first, and I didn't do that, so who knows, that could have been it. So there it is. It's all trimmed up, ready to regrow. We're going to repot it next spring. Maybe the other one will be looking good by then too. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.